delay, folks. Good evening, everyone. Tonight is Monday, January 25th, 2021. The time is 6:03 p.m. This is the Town of Halifax Finance Committee meeting. On tonight's agenda, we have budgets, acceptance of minutes, reserve fund transfers, meeting with the Board of Selectmen regarding wage and personnel employee requests, which is be approximately 6:15, correspondence, public participation, calendar, and as may arise. So anyone who's either here now or who's joining us for the wage and personnel discussion, we should be able to get to that in a few minutes as soon as the select board is able to join us. All right, let's start out with budgets. So first off, thank you so much, Sandy, for sending along those revised budgets and for maintaining the SharePoint file, which has been really, really useful. Mm-hmm. So folks, in an email, timestamp is 2:04 p.m. We have some new formulas and some new things in tonight's folder. So Sandy, do you want us to pull that up and start looking at that now? Or do you want us to kind of table that agenda item until after wage and personnel? What would you prefer?
Doesn't matter. If you guys want to take a look at it, I just wanted to make sure that everyone understood it's multiple layers. The synopsis page doesn't make sense until all the budget expenses have been filled in. Mm-hmm. Because I've filled in to the best that I could the revenue page. Mm-hmm. Again, that could fluctuate depending on the state budget. Mm-hmm. And how things, as we project through the year. We keep comparing this year to last year, trying to figure out if our local receipts are going to be about the same. Mm-hmm. But we are still missing some of the expenditure items. And the big one is where we still don't have Silver Lakes. Mm-hmm. Silver Lakes is a $5 million budget. So that's the big one. That's why it looks like we're doing great when you looked at the synopsis page. Mm-hmm. But when that comes in, I'm sure things will change. We still have actually, if you look at the expense, I highlighted in purple, the ones that we're still waiting for. So it's really, we're actually doing very good for the end of January. Mm-hmm. So a lot of times we don't have a lot of these budgets till into February. So I'll start making phone calls again after, this week, seeing what I can get for budgets. I'm not sure when we will expect the Silver Lake budget, though. It depends on when Gordon's not, maybe when Gordon comes on, he can give us an idea of when we'll expect that in. Okay. So, but if you guys have any questions, feel free to contact me on the way that it's laid out. We do a synopsis page, a state aid page, a revenues page, a page that has the separate articles. The articles, most of the articles are paid for out of our free cash or undesignated fund balance. There are a few you'll see that we have already set up that will come out of raise and appropriate. We do the reserve fund out of raise and appropriate. We do any of the union contracts come out of raise and appropriate. But the majority of the articles will come out of the free cash or undesignated fund balance. We try to never use that free cash to balance our budget, the operations end of it. So that's why we try to keep them separate. And then the last tab is the expenditures. And on that, I've given you what was expended for the last, actually 5 years this year. And then what was voted for the current year we're in, just so that you have a chance to really look at how, compare how they're doing. So feel free to contact me if anyone has questions. Just a quick rundown.
Great. Thank you, Sandy. And I think, folks, as we get into when we start to have budget discussions in earnest and we start going through each of the lines and stuff, I think, at least I found when I first started doing it, that it made more sense once we actually started working with the numbers and getting into the materials, as opposed to kind of thinking about it outside the context of budget discussions. Like Sandy's overviews was incredibly helpful. And I think as we start to actually work with it, you're anything like me, it'll make even more sense as we start actually like having concrete discussions about some of these numbers. But that was really helpful. So thank you very much, Sandy. Anybody, anything else on budgets? I know we're kind of keeping an eye on time here because we do expect the select board to be jumping in. So, but is there anything, questions, comments, concerns so far on the budget process or what anyone's roles are?
Melinda, if the board, I just want to run by the board.
Sure.
I guess we might as well do it now. You could do it on a correspondence either way. But I did reach out to the departments, as you had all asked. And I do have, I do have about 5 departments that got back to me so far, and I just want to run them by the committee and double check. So the Board of Health and the library both said that they'd be available next week on February 1st. If you could meet with the Board of Health and library on that day. And then the water department said that they would like to come in on February 8th if they could come in that day. And then the other 2 I heard from were just recycling and the collector treasurer, who both said that they don't feel they don't think they need to come in unless you have specific questions for them. They feel confident in what they put in their budgets and hopefully after they talk to the liaison. But if you want them to meet with you, they will, but they don't want to take up the time if you don't necessarily feel that you have extra questions.
Okay.
So are we all set with Board of Health and library for next week?
I think that sounds good. I think that if anyone wants to jump in on top, like maybe not a really big budgeted department, but if anyone else gets back to you and says that they want to come in on that week too, I think we could certainly accommodate another department head that evening. Okay. If you need to find a spot for someone and they want to get it over with sooner rather than later.
Sure. So I'll put the tentatively right now. I just said to them, the Board of Health, I put them at 6:15 because they asked if they could have the first appointment, and then the library I have just at 6:30 at the moment, just to kind of give them slots to aim for.
That's perfect.
And then, like I said, the water department didn't even want to meet till the week after that, and then I haven't heard from anybody else yet.
Yeah. I just saw in the chat, Jean Gallant from the library just asked a question about, are we meeting over Zoom? And the answer to that is yes. So the department heads will be visiting with us over Zoom. So it'll just be like this evening where we're signing in. You can use the Zoom link and we'll just conduct business this way. Try to keep everyone healthy. And Susan Lawless, who says same for COA, she can come in if need be. So the folks that are certainly open to coming but don't see a need at this moment, we can touch base with their liaisons after they've had their discussions and then kind of go from there based on the liaison's recommendation and how the department head's feeling. I'm happy to go from there.
Yeah, I've spoken with Susan.
Oh, great.
I spoke with her last week and I don't really see any need.
Okay.
She's pretty straightforward.
Great. All right. Thanks, Cheryl. Yep. So then I think, Susan, we can wait on you unless something happens. Like I remember last budget cycle, I think like the copier came up kind of in the middle for everybody. So if this goes with all departments too, if something comes up or changes as we're in the process, please let us know. But otherwise, we'll kind of leave the schedule as it is so far. All right. Reserve fund acceptance of minutes. So thank you to Linda for doing those for us. We have the meeting minutes here.
Linda, if you can back up for a minute, just one note on the budget. Sure. It's not reflected, I think, in Sandy's numbers because we haven't had any meeting about doing that. But I didn't, during the MMA conference last week, the Lieutenant Governor came out and said that the state receipts were sufficient, that we should see a 3.5% increase in local aid from the state. It's not most of our aid. It's maybe 20 to 25% of our cherry sheet. But what it means is that when we worked everything out back in November, we dropped that by 5%. And so instead of a 5% drop, it should increase 3.5%. Now, if someone's asked me, why should I take the Lieutenant Governor's word for it? It's because there is that formula that they use with the legislature about unrestricted local aid in that, and they've followed this now for a number of years, in that they will go over what the increase is in the state revenues, and that's what the number they will use to increase the local aid for the communities. So we haven't made an adjustment for that, but what it means is, let's say 70,000 to the good, which would be obviously a material difference in where we are maybe at the end of the day. Just, it's not factored in yet, but I think it's a real number nevertheless. Just wanted to make sure people were aware of that announcement last week. That's it. Sorry.
Great. No, thank you very much. All right, so we have the meeting minutes from Monday, January 11th, 2021. Many thanks to Linda for typing these up. So the members present were Cheryl Zarella Burke, Fred McGovern, Melinda Tarsi, Tom Connolly, Lauren Carmichael, and Drew McClincy. So just as a reminder, only the folks that were present at the meeting are eligible to vote on the meeting minutes. If you weren't there, you would vote as an abstention. That being said, I would entertain a motion for the Finance Committee to approve the meeting minutes from Monday, January 11th, 2021, as written.
I'll make that motion. Accept Secretary's minutes.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor, I'll roll call us. Cheryl?
Aye.
Tom?
Aye.
Lauren?
Aye.
Fred?
Aye.
And myself, Melinda? Aye. All right, great. Thank you all so much. Thank you, Linda. All right, next up on the agenda, we have the meeting with Board of Selectmen, which should be starting pretty soon. I guess in the interim, if everyone's okay, if we move just one little housekeeping item ahead, correspondence. So the correspondence that we received, besides Sandy pointing out the additional budget documents that have been, or the revisions to the budget documents, we do have the petitions for tonight's hearing for what was the Wage and Personnel Board. And Linda, I'm sorry, I'm going between the two, the two emails. Do we have any other correspondence?
The only other correspondence I have besides the wage and personnel things, there was one from Charlie, but also basically in regards to that as far as the 10 towns. And then the only other thing is the resignation from Bill.
Right. Could we trouble you, please, Linda, to help us write up a thank you letter to Bill for all of his service on the Finance Committee and on capital planning?
Of course.
Thank you.
That brings me to another point. You'll need to have another liaison for capital planning.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, all of Bill's departments need to be split up now, I would say.
Yeah. I'm trying to think. Linda, do you have the list of the departments on hand?
I know it's highway, cemetery, I believe it's recycling, but give me 1 second and I can pull it up. Yeah, water too, I think.
I have it open if you want me to share my screen.
Oh, thanks, Lauren.
Oh, fabulous. Thank you. I was literally going into
I already had it open, so I figured.
Oh, awesome. Thank you so much.
Is this what you meant?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's Bill over there with the capital planning, cemetery, highway, recycling, and water.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I don't mind reaching out to folks. There won't be a lot of continuity because I'll be the next one to roll off, but I'm happy to just reach out to them and ask if there's anything that they want to chat about with the liaison for now. And then
Melinda, I'm in pretty good shape, so if you want to split it up, give me a couple.
Okay, that'd be awesome. Thank you. So why don't Sandy, do we have, I guess in terms of capital planning, who's on capital planning now?
So currently we have Mike Zarella.
Yeah.
And myself.
Okay.
We need a liaison from the selectmen. I don't know that that's been decided yet, and a liaison from the Finance Committee. And then we still have one or two, Charlie, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it's one or two openings for resident at large.
I think Mike would be one of the two, and then we'd have a second vacancy for large.
Okay.
So that's where we are.
Okay, so I guess there's kind of a couple issues here. So one is that the Finance Committee sends a liaison to attend those capital planning meetings. So if anyone has an interest or wants to think about it maybe for next week, we can come back to this and perhaps take a vote on that if you're interested in these kind of big ticket items, if you're interested in capital projects or how the planning for that goes. That would be a great way to serve and to have your liaisonship, for that to be your liaisonship arrangement. In terms of the committees that Bill had, cemetery, highway, recycling, and water. Why don't we do this? Tom, if you're comfortable, would you like to take recycling and water? And I'll take Steve Hayward.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'll take Steve for cemetery and highway, and then you can do recycling with Sue and water with Keith.
Yeah, done.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. All right, and then in the interim, folks can think about potentially serving. And Charlie, would we be able to send out, and I know you're always doing blasts for volunteers for town committees, but maybe do a special blast for capital planning for the at-large spots?
Yeah, if Linda can send me a gentle reminder, or Sandy can, someone can. I'm going to forget 15 seconds from now. So.
Yeah, I know you feel. All right, awesome.
Should I stop sharing?
Yeah, I think we're all set. Does anyone else need to see the screen, or are we all good?
I have fun.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you so much. All right. I guess we can move ahead because the select board isn't here yet.
Well, I would not assume that you're going to see them. As much as we're having a joint hearing, I've talked with them about this before, and this is basically the formal hearing in that under the bylaw, we have to have a date and time where the amendments will be heard in the sense of read aloud. How much discussion occurs during the hearing is up to the board and the committee. There doesn't have to be any substantial discussion. You might then give some marching orders to certain people as to, okay, we need to get more information about X, Y, or Z or something like that. But it's fully within your prerogative to talk about it as much as you want, and fully within your prerogative to simply say, here's the list, and go on from there. I mean, obviously we'll have to get work done between now and, let's say, the middle of March. But everything doesn't have to be decided tonight.
Okay. So they're probably not going to come.
Well, one of them,
I'm hearing.
one of them doesn't really have internet at his house. One of them might very well be at a school committee meeting. And I don't know about the third one. So.
Okay. Right.
So, and I think that Linda has the complete set at this point. I believe that there was that Board of Health one also, Linda. I think you mentioned, yeah.
Yeah, I'm trying to go through I have that full set from other requests. So Linda, just to double check, because I remember I saw the full set that came through from Charlie.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I didn't have the Board of Health one in there because I was reading it as not something that was to go to wage and personnel, but there's something at the bottom that does indicate it. So it was submitted on time and everything. It was.
So I think I emailed them, but if I didn't, I can read my copies because I know that I checked against the town clerk to make sure that we both had the same ones.
Okay. I don't mind reading it.
Okay.
Let me just make sure. Sorry.
No, that's quite all right.
Yeah, where are the?
I don't have it.
Do you have the date on the? Sorry about this. Do you have the date on the email that has the full set?
I don't.
Okay.
And I think I sent it a while ago too. So.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
No, it's not your fault.
Let me see if I can find it myself too.
5 minutes.
I know I didn't send it with the last set of emails. That's for certain.
Capital.
I have a feeling I probably sent it before the 11th because I had it all.
Yeah, but
Last meeting, let me see.
Not on that one.
I don't have it.
Okay, I think I found it. I think it's dated Monday, 1/11/2021, sent at 11:28 a.m. It's minutes and correspondence, and there's a file on there called scan 0076. And that looks to me like it starts with the HES positions and then goes to public library. And then goes to, I mean, there's some article requests, but then there's wage and personnel requests in that big PDF.
Yep. That's
Okay.
exactly the one I'm on as well.
All right, awesome. And then I'm just going to scroll to the end. I don't see a Board of Health one on this packet.
No, I don't either. And they did turn it in late that day, so I might have it separately.
Okay, so then when we get to that one, Linda, maybe if you wouldn't mind reading that one aloud and we'll be good.
Sure.
Okay. So I guess procedurally, just because we've never done this as a committee of the full before, I can tell you what we did in prior years when it came to these hearings. And I think because this year we're working out a new organizational format, it makes sense for all of us to have just a minute to touch base about how the process can go. So as Charlie mentioned, we've received these proposals for changes to the bylaws or changes to position grades, et cetera. We're going to read them aloud tonight and ask folks if they have any commentary. Now, there's a couple different ways it could go, as Charlie mentioned, right? We could have sort of full-blown discussions about each proposal this evening, and anyone who is here either in support or in opposition to that proposal can speak to that at that time. We can ask questions, things like that. What we've done in the past, and definitely last year, if not the year before, is to read the proposal aloud. If the person who brought it forth or who is for or against it is in the audience, we allow them to make some statements. And then we basically come up with a to-do list for future meetings. In the same way that we invite the department heads in kind of small groups or one at a time to talk about their budget, we then invite those folks who are related to that proposal in to talk to whatever we're calling wage and personnel now, and to clarify, to get more information, to review position descriptions, that kind of thing. Either is fine, obviously, right? They both procedurally get the same thing done. But I think what might be helpful for tonight is to do the second format, which is reading, asking for commentary, and then sort of making up a to-do list of the things that we have to review and get done. That being said, what do you all feel about that format?
I think it's fine, but I just want to clarify, was this that scan 0084 that came from Linda?
This one is scan 0076 that came from Linda on 1/11/21.
1/11. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks. I'll find it.
Yeah, it's called like minutes and correspondence is the email title.
Okay.
And then a couple of us, I think, commented back and forth on it, but the original email has an attachment on it.
Okay, thanks.
No problem.
I think the format's fine.
Okay. Everybody else? Okay,
yeah, that works for me too.
Okay. All right. So again, those of you who are here from the public or here related to particular proposals, we're going to read each one out loud in turn. We'll allow for some time for commentary. If folks don't feel comfortable speaking in front of like the full committee like this, then as we start to put agendas together to come back to these items in future meetings, obviously all of those are public as well. Then you can make sure to be on the agenda. You can reach out to us and ask to appear before the committee, have conversations with us about these proposals. And that way everyone has, I think, a little bit more time to prepare, not just from the FinCom side and the select board side, but then also the folks who have a vested interest in these proposals. I think it's more fair to allow them to have some time to prepare. All right, so as long as everybody's okay with that, we'll start. So first off, we have a proposal. So Charlie, procedurally, from Halifax Elementary, is this considered a wage and personnel proposal, even though they have line item autonomy in their budget?
Which?
The HES, the long-term sub, the 3 long-term classroom, the 3 sub teachers. It's first item on the scan.
I'm not even sure why it would be here.
Okay.
Oh, I think that was just in there as correspondence,
Okay.
like along with the articles.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
It's all the same correspondence in the same week. That's why.
Okay.
The school is its own thing. Period.
Yeah.
I mean, custodians, cafeteria, subs, permanent, you name it, it's over there. It doesn't fall in wage and personnel.
Mm-hmm. Okay, good. All right, so if we scan a few pages down, you'll go past capital and article requests, and you'll come to a page in your scan that has the town seal on it, and it's to the Board of Selectmen and the Finance Committee from Charlie Seelig, Town Administrator. The date on the memo is January 8th, 2021, and it's proposed wage and personnel amendment, positions in grades 6 and 7. All right, I'll give everyone a second to get there. Let me know if you have any problems with that. Okay. I am requesting the Board of Selectmen and Finance Committee review the grades and pay rates for the positions currently in grades 6 and 7 in the town's wage and personnel bylaw. C, grade 6, 1, administrative assistant, 2, library associate, 3, outreach worker / council on aging. D, grade 7, 1, selectman's assistant, 2, assistant town accountant, 3, assistant town treasurer, 4, assistant town collector, 5, assistant town clerk, 6, administrative assessor, 7, assistant library director, 8, recycling coordinator, and 9, IT specialist. I am making this request as at least 2 departments have made requests for changes in grade for grade 6 or grade 7 positions in their departments. And I feel that if any positions in these 2 grades are to be reviewed, then all positions in these 2 grades should be reviewed. It may be that the grades are correct, but the pay scale should be adjusted based on the wages paid in comparable, not necessarily abutting communities. I will also note that of the 5 positions in the current grade 8, 1, labor, equipment, and treatment plant operator, 2, conservation agent, 3, recycling driver with CDL, 4, senior treatment plant operator, and 5, animal control officer. 1 has been vacant for about 10 years, and 3 are now positions in one of the unions, leaving just 1, the animal control officer, which was just regraded this past year as an active wage and personnel position in grade 8. Please note that I'm not recommending any specific changes, just ensuring that any decisions concerning grades, changes in grades and or pay scales include a review of all positions in grades 6 and 7. Okay, so Charlie, as the author, we can open it up to you.
Covering my butt. I didn't want people suddenly deluging or being disappointed. Wait a minute, because this is what happened last time, or it's happened a couple of times. Somebody puts in an amendment and everybody says, wait a minute, what about me? What about my department? I just wanted to cover everybody. And like I said, I'm not here to advocate. I'm certainly happy to do research as directed by the selectmen or yourselves. And that research might bring me to say something, yes, no, maybe, whatever. But I wanted to keep everybody's options open. Mm-hmm. Mind you, the Finance Committee and the selectmen under the wage and personnel bylaw right now have the right to make other amendments at town meeting, so that even if something is not read today, mm-hmm. that was submitted by the 11th, you and or the selectmen can still bring something else to town meeting. Now, obviously, it's got to be in the warrant and everything, but nothing prevents you during the next couple of months saying, well, wait a minute, what about X? What about Y? Mm-hmm. We didn't meet the deadline. Well, you all don't have a deadline other than getting it to print in the warrant.
Okay. Okay, great. Thank you. Any members of, I guess we'll start with the committee. Any members of the committee have any comments concerning this? Remember, we'll still set aside time for each of these proposals in subsequent meetings. So this is really just for, like I said, for the author of the proposal and also members of the public. If anyone is here who wants to speak to this at this time, if so, great. And if not, and you'd rather wait until we tackle just this proposal in a meeting with the select board, and you have some time to prepare some comments or whatever, then that's great too. Either is totally fine.
Maybe if I could ask, maybe it's Charlie, is it a matter of equity or completeness? Is there already an issue of equity or of pay equity or job evaluation that we're aware of, or this is just mainly a for the sake of good order, let's reevaluate all of the jobs?
It's both.
Okay.
What happened last year is that wage and personnel, I think, and Melinda can tell me that I'm incorrect, I think that wage and personnel concluded there needs to be some review of particularly those two grades. We had a slew of proposals to change the grades for many of these positions. Mm-hmm. The Wage and Personnel Board did not end up making any recommendations, but I also don't know that they, in essence, said, nah, we're fine, everything's cool. So when we had the first couple trickle in, I wanted to make sure that we didn't have a problem where, we go to the equity problem, where a couple of the positions that are in grade 6 are reviewed and not the rest, and then none are reviewed in grade 7. I mean, there are particular issues about regrading, and it's something that's going to be mentioned later on, in that regrading, I think, on an isolated basis for these two grades will, in fact, end up with inequities. The original proposals, and again, they're going to be read later tonight, were to move two positions from grade 6 to grade 8. Mm-hmm. Yet you have positions in grade 7 that are called statutory assistants, and that have to become the department heads in the absence of the department head.
Right.
The original requests were for grade 8, yet these people would not be the department heads in the absence of the department head. So this is why I said it may not be, you may not have to regrade. It may be you need to review the wages instead of regrading, because I don't know that over the years necessarily the responsibilities of those positions have changed. I mean, everybody's responsible for more. I'm not disagreeing with that. But I don't know if there's been a distinct material change necessarily in all those positions. There may have been, and that's something you all can be looking at. Mm-hmm. But it may also be simply a matter of looking at those comparable towns for all these positions and saying, what should be the wage rate for this group based on what we see elsewhere, rather than this group has had a change in responsibilities, we need to regrade it to another grade.
Got it. Thanks. And who's responsible for doing the job, for doing the market pricing? Is that you, Charlie, or?
Probably.
Oh, okay.
I'll be working, whoever gets it will work together. I mean, I'm not going to be doing it as my only thing. I hope that, the staff here in the Selectman's office will be able to help out. But sometimes it's difficult to get information out of my colleagues and know where to look and know what questions to ask, even by phone. And so certainly direct some of the research, make sure it comes back. And if I think there are holes missing, get those holes filled in. We know that if we're looking at comparable communities, we know that there are two problems. Some positions don't exist. Some positions exist and have very different sets of responsibilities. Right. At what point do you get into the minutia of that to say, well, this is a comparable position to this one, in the sense of our assistant treasurers, for instance, across southeastern Mass have all the same duties? I don't know. Right. So we might have to take a look at that versus just the wages only. But is the administrative assistant position the same across departments and across all communities? At some point, there's a limit to the amount of work we can get done while doing everything else. But at least we can get a better idea of where we stand and whether any changes are necessitated.
Sure. Okay. Thank you.
Jean Gallant had indicated in the chat that she would like to speak, so I told her that I would make sure to call on her next. So Jean, go ahead and unmute.
Okay. Thank you, Melinda. So I appreciate that Charlie put in these, the article to have the grades 6 and 7 looked at. I'm wondering if there's a way to avoid this whole problem that Charlie was talking about in fairness of equity. Like, all of the department heads should at some point know what all of the other department heads are doing, because, you know, that one year that everybody put in for a certain thing, and then if I don't know that you know, articles are being put in for grade increases, then I'm not necessarily looking at that. And then last year I said, well, I don't want that to happen again. So I put in, you know, for my grades 6 and 7. And it was kind of like, then everybody said, well, if you're going to look at that, then look at this. And it seems like it would be more equitable if we weren't all wondering what everybody else was doing, and we all kind of, I don't know, sat down and talked about it. I don't know if anybody can do about it, but it seems like a way to avoid all of this problems that Charlie was just talking about. So that's my first thing. My second thing is, how do I get a copy of all of the proposals? I know I got one last year.
Mm-hmm. Sure. Either I or Linda can definitely make sure to get that to you. And then same thing with, I mean, I know we're not in person, so we can't hand out packets, which is normally what we would do.
Yeah.
I was going to say, even if probably your best bet, honestly speaking from former experience, we have the same information, but I would check with Barbara Gaynor and go through the clerk, because she keeps a copy and she has a time-stamped copy of everything. So that might be even a better bet. You'll see what was submitted when.
Yep, thank you. That's right. That's how I got it last year. But does anybody have any comments or understand what I'm trying to say about the submission process on these articles?
I think so, Jean. I think it's sort of the it's that, like, in an environment of low information, or an environment where people aren't sure what other folks are doing, it seems like there's some like hedging almost, or just trying to make sure that no one gets left behind, but you're doing that without complete information of what else is happening around you. And that might leave some department heads feeling like, okay, I'm doing this because I think I have to, but I'm not entirely sure what everyone else is going to be doing and whether or not this is, you know, in everyone's best interest, or that's not even what I mean.
Exactly. No, I mean, you're saying it much better than I do, but I do think it's a problem. And I don't know, Charlie, do you think that there's a way we can fix this?
Well, there's a couple of ways. It depends on what, you know, how to get the information out. Either we have I wouldn't recommend trying to do a Zoom meeting with 20 department heads. We've tried that before and it sort of just falls apart. Not because of the people, it's the tech that's involved. But I also don't want to place the burden on Barbara or necessarily anybody else, unless it, you know, the anvil drops on me again, which is that between the time when we announce, okay, we're accepting amendments, and the time when the deadline is, that as the amendments come by, either Barbara sends an email out, you know, scans it and sends an email out to everybody, here's the latest amendment, or I do it. I mean, having a meeting after COVID, certainly going to be far easier. So maybe one would hope next December or January, before the deadline, if people were interested in having a meeting about it, we'll be able to get together in the same room. But the other method I mentioned is is another way of handling it. It's not a meeting, but at least it makes sure that everybody's informed about anything that is coming in. Those are the two ways I could see. Okay, I guess I dropped an anvil on everybody else then.
What was the first way you were saying, Charlie?
So either Barbara or myself, as the stuff comes in, we scan it, we send it out, so that, you know, instead of COVID numbers, I send out wage and personnel amendments. Not on Facebook, but I'll send an email out to the department saying today's amendments are, here's the scanner, boom. The other way is do a meeting. It's difficult doing it on Zoom with everybody in the same building or a few buildings. In post-COVID, we probably should be able to pull it off. Either way, at least the information gets out before the deadline and people can watch what's going on.
I mean, I think that sounds like a good idea. What does everybody else think?
I personally think that would be a great idea. I mean, it almost reminds me of the all department meeting that we've had in the past as we head into the budget cycle, where we just get everyone in a room and say, okay, this is what we know so far about the budget, right? Like in late November, early December, we try to get everyone in the room and say, all right, here's what we know. Here's how things are looking. Here's the financial picture. Now, all of you have the same amount of information. Now you can go forward and generate your budgets. And if you have questions, you can ask them then. And then I feel like that kind of leveled the playing field a little bit, and made sure that the message that was received was consistent. So that kind of reminds me of that model, Jean.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea. And thank you, Barbara, for, taking on. I'm not trying to give anybody extra work.
No, I think that's a pretty common sentiment too, Jean, that folks want to feel like they have more information about the submissions and the process in general. So, and thank you very much, Barbara, for offering to do that. That's wonderful. Any other comments on this first proposal? Like, as I mentioned, we'll have subsequent meetings to go further in depth on these, but the purpose of the hearing tonight is really just to read these into the record at this point and offer anyone a comment. Right. And if I miss anyone, please yell, because I'm going between the two screens. So, all right. The next proposal is dated January 6, 2021 to Barbara Gaynor, Town Clerk, from Chief Jason Viveros, CC'd the Board of Selectmen and Finance Committee. I am requesting a reclassification for the position of Fire Department Administrative Assistant. I would like this position to be reclassified to the same grade as the other assistants in town, meaning an increase from the current grade 6 to grade 8. I would also request that this request be inclusive of any change in grade or status that the other assistants receive for FY22. Thank you, Jason Viveros, Fire Chief. Okay, so in line with Charlie, the same sentiment or the same request as the one that Charlie just read, but this one was specific from the Fire Chief. Any comments, questions concerning this proposal?
No.
I mean, this one's resolved by the same process, right? I mean, Sandra sort of educated me on why it's a 6 and not a 7. So but basically that's sort of an education process with Jason.
So the way the grades landed at this point, and when we regrade, we use a rubric that has different criteria across different categories of the job, not categories of the job, different like components of a job, right? So your physical danger, your need for manual dexterity, your education requirement, your experience requirement, there's different criteria. And then like when I was part of the regrading, we went through each job position description and independently assessed, okay, based on the position description, here's numerically where this person falls in this criteria, total the numbers up at the end, and that gave ranges of scores that we fit into grades. And that process was done long before I was here too. So that was just, we had regraded 2 years ago. So that's where the fitting into particular grades comes from. It comes from the score on those rubrics that evaluate different elements of the position.
Point systems. Sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. All right. So I'll go to the next one.
Yeah.
All right. Date January 7th, 2021 to Barbara Gaynor, Town Clerk, from Chief Shavs, Board of Selectmen, and the Finance Committee are all CC'd. I'm requesting a reclassification hearing for the position of Police Department Administrative Assistant. I would like this position to be reclassified to the same grade as the other assistants in town, meaning an increase from the current grade 6 to grade 8. I would also request that this request be inclusive of any change in grade or status that the other assistants receive for FY22. Thank you, Police Chief Shops. Okay. Any comments, questions, or concerns, or any questions or comments rather about this proposal?
No.
Maybe just a point of information, just isn't a distinction here, I've forgotten the term, but that the other assistants are statutory replacements, if you will. That, you know, in the hit by a bus theory, that in those other departments where they're graded an 8,
they wouldn't be. Yeah.
They would have to step in, but that's not the case for the administrative assistants in police and fire.
Right.
They have a deputy who would do that instead.
Correct.
Is that accurate?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Correct. And then,
Thanks.
and I think here's where like all the gray is, right? Is that there's criteria, for example, there's one called accountability. That's the title of it. And the way we kind of frame it is, if this person, whoever's in this position, I'm not talking about the police admin system, but any position, were to do something wrong, how much liability would the town be exposed to if that person did something horrible in their job, right? So like in the course of your job, if you, for example, folks who are touching confidential information, like the police admin assistant and the fire admin assistant, if they were to mishandle confidential information, right? Right. But now compare that to, someone in IT, if they were to mishandle the confidential information, right? So there's all kinds of risks. And that was one of the things that that point system is trying to do, is to assign values to the potential risks and the potential, different elements of the job. Yeah. But yeah, you're right. So the statutory requirements, one, but then, access to, or having to deal with interdepartmental agencies, right? Having to deal with the federal government, which some admin assistants might do and other ones might not, and introduces a different level of responsibility. So that's where there's so many different components to everyone's job. And that's where it gets really, really tricky when we're doing the grading.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, any other comments on this? I'll just check the text box one more time. Okay, next up, January 7th, 2021, to Barbara Gaynor from Chief Viveros, CC the Board of Selectmen and Finance Committee. I'm requesting review of the changes I am suggesting to the Wage and Personnel Bylaw. I've made changes to Bylaw 35.1, Appendix A. Thank you, Chief Viveros. Okay. I have to read this, so I apologize in advance. Group C, Fire Department, non-union personnel. Amended 5/12/1997 ATM Article 3, 5/10/1999 ATM Article 3, 5/11/2009 ATM Article 3, 5/9/2011 ATM Article 2, 5/14/2012 ATM Article 2, amended 5/14/2018 ATM Article 2, amended 6/15/2020 ATM Article 2. Appendix A continued. So what is stricken is chief's clothing allowance of $575 annually. Stricken is detail rate for call firefighters will be time and a half for town of Halifax details only. Here's the actual text. A, call firefighter shall start on step 1 and remain at this level for at least 1 year from the time the call firefighter is appointed. At the end of the probationary period, 1 year, the firefighter shall be given a practice test. The firefighter shall have 2 tries at passing the test. If the call firefighter does not pass the examination at this time, the call firefighter shall remain at step 1 and be retested again in 6 months. If the firefighter does not pass the examination at this time, the call firefighter should be terminated. Amended 6/15/2020 ATM Article 2. The standards for the practical examination shall be set by the chief of the fire department. Everything else I'm about to read now is proposed to be stricken from the bylaw. All right. So everything I'm about to read now, until I tell you not, is about to be stricken, is proposed to be stricken by the fire chief. To advance to step 4, a firefighter must qualify as a pump operator and driver. Fire-related courses. Each member of the fire department who attends a fire course sponsored by the Massachusetts Fire Academy shall receive the following compensation for satisfactorily completing the course. 1, mileage for each day of travel to and from the training site at the town of Halifax mileage rate. 2, meal allowance of $5 if the training course requires a firefighter to spend over 6 hours at the training site. A firefighter shall receive payment after he/she produces a certificate of completion from the Massachusetts Fire Academy. Before a firefighter attends a course, the firefighter must obtain approval from the fire chief. Amended 6/15/2020 ATM Article 2. All of that is proposed to be stricken. Now, recertification. Each EMT shall be paid for attending required recertification courses in order to maintain certification as an EMT. The amount paid to be at the EMT rate. Extra details to outside contractors, not time-related details, are to be paid a 2-hour minimum at an hourly rate of $50 per hour. Detail rate for the town of Halifax shall be time and a half. Amended ATM 5/8/2017 Article 2. Amended ATM 5/14/2018 Article 2. Next, education incentive. All call firefighters hired after October 1st, 2005 shall receive an incentive-based yearly bonus system for the certifications they receive up to a maximum of 1,000. The breakdown of certifications and dollar amount is as follows. Certification level, firefighter 1 or 2, $250 minimum certification. Fire officer 1, $250 requires firefighter 1 and 2 and instructor 1 certification. Appendix A continued. Fire officer 2, $100. Fire officer 3, $100. Fire officer 4, $100. Fire instructor 1, $200 requires firefighter 1, 2 certification. Fire instructor 2, $100. Fire inspector 1, $100 requires firefighter 1 and 2 certification. Fire inspector 2, 100. Pump operator, 100. Aerial operator, 100. Length of service incentive. All call firefighters hired prior to October 1st, 2005 shall receive an incentive-based yearly bonus system for the certifications they receive up to a maximum of 1,000. Members hired prior to October 1st, 2005 are not required to complete the firefighter 1-2 certification due to being on the department for more than 15 years will have the years of service time prorated to max out to 1,000. This years of service exclusion will not be available to anyone hired after October 1st, 2005. The incentive for non-certified members hired before October 2nd, 1998 is 15 years of service, 200, 20 years of service, 400, 25 years of service, 600, 30 years of service, 800, 35 years or more, 1,000 max. Point system for length of service and education incentives. All call firefighters shall receive points for attending training drills and calls. The point system for receiving this incentive is based on a 12-month period and will be prorated based on the number of training sessions and calls available to respond to. Each call responded to is worth 1.5 points. Each training session is worth 6.25 points. An example of this as follows. If the department has 1 training per month, 12 per year, and you attend 12 training sessions offered, you receive 75 points or 75% of the incentive. If you respond to at least 17 calls per year, you receive another 25 points or 25%. The system balances out depending on the member's availability over the calendar year. If you come to half of the training offered and respond to 34 calls, you hit 100% of the point total. Minimum entry-level qualifications. A call firefighter shall start on step 1 and remain at this level for at least 1 year from the time he or she is appointed. Appendix A continued. All call firefighters shall attend a firefighter 1-2 program and shall certify to the firefighter 1-2 NFPA 1001 standard for firefighter professional qualifications within 1 year of appointment or as soon as practicable. The call firefighter shall remain on probation until such time as they successfully complete firefighter 1-2 certification. If the firefighter fails to certify the firefighter 1-2 standard, he or she shall be terminated. So this is all replacing the stricken items that I had read before. Call firefighter training reimbursement. Firefighters must obtain written permission from the chief prior to attending training courses. All call firefighters shall be paid at their hourly rate for all approved training. Okay. Fire department amended 5/13/2013 ATM Article 2, amended 5/12/2014 ATM Article 3, amended 5/11/2015 ATM Article 2, amended 5/9/2016 ATM Article 2, amended 5/8/2017 ATM Article 2, amended 5/14/2018 ATM Article 2, amended 6/15/2020 ATM Article 2, Amendment 11. Any employee of the fire department as of June 30th, 2013, whose wage rate would be lowered by the grades and steps scheduled for the fire department to go into effect on July 1st, 2013, shall have his or her wage rate frozen unless there is a general across-the-board wage increase for employees covered under the Wage and Personnel Bylaw, in which case the wage rate shall be increased by the same percentages for all their employees. Right, so fire department, I'll read from left to right. Step 1, 2, 3, 4. Call firefighter. Step 1, 1915, 1972, 2031, 2092. Call firefighter EMT, 2067, 2130, 2195, 2260. Call firefighter EMT 1, 2106, 2169, 2233, 2302. Call firefighter EMTP 2155, 2218, 2284, 2354. Call lieutenant 2071, 2134, 2198, 2265. Call lieutenant EMT 2237, 2304, 2374, 2444. Call lieutenant EMT 1, 2278, 2348, 2418, 2493. Call lieutenant EMTP 2330, 24, 2473, 2545. Call captain 2241, 2310, 2378, 2449. Call captain EMT 2422, 2493, 2569, 2646. Call captain EMT 1, 2467, 2530, 2618, 2694. Call captain EMTP 2523, 2598, 2677, 2755. Excuse me. Call deputy chief 2463, 2536, 2611, 2690. Call deputy chief EMT 2658, 2739, 2819, 2906. Call deputy chief EMT 1, 2708, 2790, 2871, 2960. Call deputy chief EMTP 2768, 2853, 2939, and 3026. Anyone have any comments?
Wow.
Not reading it again. All right, and then the last one I believe that I at least don't have in front of me, and that Linda, I believe you have, is the Board of Health.
Yep, let me grab that one.
It's trouble you to read that one.
Absolutely. That's where I put it. Okay. So I'm not going to read the first part that Charlie's referring to that he doesn't think needs to be part of the public hearing.
Okay.
It's something else that they're requesting, but it's from the Board of Health. It's dated January 11th, 2021. And I'm reading item number 2, which is the Board of Health is also requesting that the health agent be granted a clothing allowance in the amount of $300.
Okay. Okay, any questions, comments on that one?
What's the health agent's job, just broadly speaking? Is it a community health worker? What's the inspector? What is that job specifically?
Everything. I'm not trying to be funny about it, but everything.
I got it.
Everything from doing the food inspections
Okay.
with COVID, but also going out and monitoring the perk tests and everything. So in fact, you know, the person is out in the field at times.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I was trying to get to. Yeah. So there's wear and tear. Okay, thank you.
I think there's a job description available too, right, Charlie? If Tom wanted it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Thanks.
I'm not sure. I think Charlie sent a separate email, and just to make sure you have it, I have an email from him dated January 11th, 2021. I think he sent it directly to all of you for proposed wage and personnel amendments, review of the top grades and the minimum wage problem.
I don't think I got that. January 11th?
January 11th?
That's the date on the memo. And as I said, I believe Charlie sent it out to the Finance Committee directly. It's talking about grade 11, 12, 12A, 12, and 14.
I don't see it.
I don't have it.
No.
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 Well,
Do you have the one from Charlie that, again, I think it went out to you directly? Charlie, can you check that? I think you sent both of these to them directly. The other one is talking about the 10 towns, and he's suggesting some changes to the 10 towns.
I saw the 10 towns.
well,
Yep.
let me go
I saw that one, Joe.
to give Melinda a break, I can read the first one if you'd like.
Sure. Thank you.
So Finance Committee and the Board of Selectmen should review how to deal with discontinuities in the top grades. So right now, grade 11 is principal, assessor, appraiser, town accountant, inspector of buildings, building commissioner, and health inspector. Grade 12, step 1, minus 10% of step 1, is the interim police chief and the interim fire chief. Grade 12A, which does not include holiday pay, is the water superintendent. Grade 12, which does include holiday pay, is the police chief and fire chief. Just to note, there's an ancient state law that requires us to have a separate holiday pay for those two positions. I'm not sure why it's still there, but nevertheless, it's there. Grade 14, town administrator, the lieutenant in the police department. We don't have one right now, but one was proposed, and if we ever do have one, that's where the grade would be. And then the director of building maintenance. So in my text after that I wrote, I suspect that new grades will need to be established with new salary scales. We've finessed this to some extent by having individual contracts with the police chief, fire chief, and town administrator. At some point, the Finance Committee and the Board of Selectmen may have to ungrade some positions so that they are separated out. So for instance, the fire department has wage rates and steps, but it's not connected to the normal grade table for other municipal employees. It's a separate table. On the minimum wage issue, I've attached a memo I wrote in December of 2019 with this issue. With the Massachusetts minimum wage continuing to increase, pressure is being placed on the lower grades, particularly grade 2, along with several ungraded positions. The Finance Committee and the Board of Selectmen need to figure out what, if anything, the town should do. Basically, what's happening is, as we get closer to that $15 minimum wage, what we're going to see is that what we're offering at grade 2 is minimum wage or practically minimum wage, and that a few positions that are ungraded we'll have to bring up. So what I want to say, the pressure is coming up. In essence, we're saying that if we don't make any changes, we're saying in essence a grade 2 position is a minimum wage position. Well, it wasn't a few years ago, back when the Massachusetts minimum wage was, let's say, $10 or something like that. But a couple of years in the future, what we're saying is that you can go work at X for $15 an hour, or come work for the town of Halifax in a grade 2 position for $15 an hour. And even grade 4 isn't that much higher than grade 2. We don't have many grade 2 positions. We do have a batch of grade 4s. And so in terms of competition, not just against other communities, but against the general job market and what private companies are going to be offering for wage rates, we're going to see some pressure from that in terms of competing for workers. Maybe that's acceptable. Maybe, in essence, the consensus is, yeah, we're fine. As long as people keep applying for the jobs, that's the wage rate we're going to pay. But then let's make that as a conscious decision instead of being hit over the head with it a couple of years from now, saying, wait a minute, why is nobody applying for this job? Well, because that grade 2 job or grade 4 job that we're offering minimum wage or a little more than that is also being offered now for a lot more than minimum wage, because a company that's offering a minimum wage position for another job said, well, wait a minute, here's a minimum wage position. We're getting people off the street with no experience, nothing, and we're offering minimum wage. We've got to offer something more for someone who has a little bit more experience, maybe a little more training and such, and we'll pay accordingly. And we're going to make a decision not to do that. That even if you have experience and training, we're giving you a minimum wage job. The other one, as I mentioned, there's a couple of solutions. Either you set up a new series of grades, or you take some of these positions out of it and say, well, there's the police chief grade, there's the fire chief grade. Mind you, there's a downside to that, which is at some point, everybody says, I want my own grade for every single position. And then we stop having a group of positions in each particular grade, and we start getting very much into my particular position is worth more than that particular position, but they're at a higher grade, or there's much more knife fighting along those lines. So again, it needs to get resolved somehow. There's a couple ways of doing it, but you don't want to get hit over the head 2 or 3 years down the road and say, wait a minute, we're paying the lieutenant in the police department more than what we would pay the police chief if the police chief didn't have a contract, which obviously doesn't make much sense.
Sorry, for those you can't see in the chat, Susan Law said, I can totally agree with Charlie. When posting for a van driver position for this Council on Aging, I had no applicants due to what we were offering for starting pay.
And that's one of the grade 2s that I think don't have the table in front of me, but I think it's a grade 2 position Susan mentioning for the drivers. And that obviously you're taking on responsibility for the security, in essence, of the people you're driving. People with medical issues, for instance, people with disabilities. It's not the easiest job in the world. I'm not saying it's the hardest one, but you need someone with good judgment. Setting aside driving experience, you need someone with good judgment making those decisions, because they're operating to some extent independently. They're away from the Council on Aging. They're driving all over the place, not just in Halifax. So if they get an issue, if they get a situation, then you want someone who's going to make a good, not a big works, and be able to solve that on the spot.
Yeah.
All right, anyone else have any other comments or questions? I think we've covered all of the wage and personnel proposals. So moving forward, the Finance Committee and the Board of Selectmen will hold public meetings again where we take up these issues in turn. So for folks who have, obviously everyone's very interested in these issues, and we know that this deals with people's livelihoods and this is incredibly important. So I think all the more reason to not try to knock out everything in one night and to really take some time and pay a lot of attention to these proposals, as we always do, right? And I think everyone that we've worked with so far on wage and personnel has truly cared about making sure that we do a good job. So we'll, I guess Charlie and or Linda will figure out when the next time the Board of Selectmen can meet to do this. And I think, at least I personally would insist on at least 2 of them being present when we start doing the work of the Wage and Personnel Committee, because that's the updated bylaw that we agreed on at the annual town meeting said that it would be the 2 committees of the whole.
What I'll try to do is, even if I can't get everybody together on a Monday night, and I'm not saying that you all should come in on a Tuesday either, or Thursday afternoon, which would be difficult, not just that you have your own work, but also we're still doing, to some extent, in-person meetings for both Tuesdays and Thursdays, but to make sure that all this is on the agenda for the selectmen's meetings, and I sort of push the pace a little bit, not in the sense of jamming everything into one meeting, but making sure that at least on the selectmen side, there's some movement. If they say, well, Charlie, we need to work on this, we need to work on that, we see some progress every couple of weeks.
Great, thank you. All right, I think up next we have, we already covered correspondence on our agenda. Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Linda, that's okay. Barbara just entered in the chat that she had an amendment in the folder from Charlie for town meeting.
I don't know if there's anything else. Or was there something else we missed? You can chat or, call in.
Yeah, she's muted right now. There she goes.
I just unmute. Sorry. I have December 24th, Wage and Personnel Bylaw Update, amendments for town meeting. And then I have another one dated January 11th with Wage and Personnel Procedures. Is that just information, or is this?
The January 11th procedures is a memo basically to everybody to say, we don't have a Wage and Personnel Board. Here's how to operate your department. Like, where do you send in the evaluation forms? Where do you send in the change of status? How are the mechanics going to work? There are not amendments to the bylaw. It's simply as a result of the votes back in September, how these things happen now that Wage and Personnel doesn't exist. I don't know what was the subject of the December one?
They both say basically the same. It was just an amendments for annual town meeting, May 10th, 2021. So I thought that you were changing what was already in the Wage and Personnel, but apparently you're just clarifying them, I guess. My mistake.
Well, that probably was a memo I sent out saying, hey, folks, time to send in amendments.
Yep, could very well have been. No, yeah, no, I don't know. It doesn't matter. I just thought that they were, I glanced at it quickly, my mistake. Thought you were proposing other amendments.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Laura. Okay, so we already handled, so anything else under public, we already handled correspondence, anything else under public participation? Calendar, I believe we're already booked for every Monday in February, so that should be sufficient for now. And anything under as may arise? Okay, hearing none, I would entertain a motion for the Finance Committee to adjourn at 7:11 p.m.
I'll make a motion to adjourn at 7:11 p.m.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor, I'll roll call us out. Lauren? Tom?
Aye.
Cheryl?
Aye.
Fred? Myself, Melinda, aye. All right, thank you so much, everyone. Have a good night, and we will see everyone next week.
Good night. Thank you.
Good night.
Take care.